Okay, so my name is Petrus Swissler. I'm here representing the Rose-Hulman human-powered vehicle team. And so really what my goals are for this presentation are to really describe exactly where we come from, what our history is, and then go into our current vehicle, the Carno cycle, which is on display over there, kind of as a case study of sorts. And then finally what I hope to do is I hope to provide some advice to maybe teams that are just starting to get on the ground and really help them become successful in any way we can by providing advice and stuff we've learned over the years. So it all started out, and oh, that got really small the years. Okay, so 2006, it started out with the Hoshin Hazard. Goal with this bike was just make something. Make something, make it ride, and go. And that was indeed what happened, and from what I understand, not much more. So then we went into our 5-year. I was talking to a previous member. He said that this year, after coming out of the Hoshin Hazard, they started having over here. Okay. They started having all these ideas of what they wanted to do. They had this vision of what the perfect bike would be, and this was what they tried to do. And so, they really tried to make the best bike, but they realized going into Infinity Year that really you should look at what other people are doing. Other people who are being successful, oftentimes the methods that they use, you can, don't want to say copy, but you can take and you can implement and refine them and do what works for you with those methods. So then coming into Mark IV, we started refining exactly what we were doing and really started narrowing in on what we wanted to do. Now, Mark IV went very well, but then Ragnarok here, there was this new thing called the unrestricted class. The unrestricted class was very interesting to us, and so we decided to go into it. And I think that was a very good decision for us. And I don't want to oversell ourselves, but I think our success in that class, really brought over a lot of teams, and I think that was, good for the competition. But the Ragnarok was a speed class vehicle with a few tweaks, and so we took the lessons we learned from Ragnarok year and applied them to last year's Helios. Helios was also a rebuilding year, so it was kind of an interesting bike. Laughs from my team. So that brings us to this year. As you might notice, this is entirely unscratched. Unlike, yeah, no, it was scratched this morning. We did a lot of training over the night. That's another thing. Train is good. We had a lot of stuff that went right. We're very happy with this bike. This bike, it's very stable, all that, and I think a lot of the reason that this bike has performed so well, and then design for it, all that sort of stuff, design compatibility. Make sure that Part A will fit with Part B, and without any sort of interference. For instance, last year we didn't communicate well enough, and so the frame was actually intersecting with the fairing and required us to cut out a hole. But this year, I made a very concerted effort as team president to really eliminate those sort of, that confusion that we had last year. And a lot of that is due to sociality and communication. You should be social with your team. You should be willing to communicate your ideas with your team. Communication gets rid of design compatibility problems. And it really makes it so that the ideas that are tossed around are fully realized. Well, no. And then finally, incorporation of new talent. The new freshmen, they have ideas, they have skills. It's easy to say, oh, he's a freshman. We have to teach him everything. That's not true. Everyone is coming from a particular location, and so, for instance, one of our members, both of his parents were professors, and so he was very good at Fluent, just right off the bat, which was very exciting for us. And then, one of us was part of a robotics team, so he had a lot of stuff to give in terms of experience with that sort of project build. But not everything we did worked. There were some systematic failings this year. We were not very good at avoiding bottlenecks. For instance, we hit a bottleneck with the molds, we hit a bottleneck with the subframe, we hit a bottleneck with the paint. And at each of these times, it was very, very frustrating because there wasn't a lot we could do to get beyond this point. This point was a bottleneck, and we couldn't get beyond it. And a lot of times, nothing was getting done because there was nothing we could do. Avoid those; they're bad. Another thing we could really work on is work distribution. A lot of times, what happened is that one person would work themselves to the bone on one aspect of the project. Patrick wanted me last night to remind everyone that he worked a lot on the landing gear the night previous. And so work distribution is something that I think we could have really worked on this year. And finally, workspace organization. We are not the most clean. I describe ourselves as gaseous. We expand to fill whatever space we can. And so, sometimes it was hard to find tools, and sometimes it was like, where is the landing gear? This thing that we've been working on. And that, keep your workspace reasonably clean. And I really think that, we had work days where we would just clean, and those days were very not fun. And I think if we had really, instilled a culture of, cleaning up after yourself after you finish something, we could have done a lot better with that. And so now I just want to give some hints. I thought about what new teams, what advice I could give new teams, and I broke it down into 3 sections. You have design, manufacturing, and team dynamics. I think these are the 3 basic things that this competition does. So in terms of design, get your drivetrain working. Get your drivetrain working. If your drivetrain does not work, your bike doesn't work. If your drivetrain works okay, you're going to be able to race. Make sure your drivetrain is robust. Make sure you can fix it because it will break. And also take examples from other people. Just because you think you have the best idea, do some research. What have other people done? And a lot of times you can get some really, really good ideas. Go to HPRA races, Human Powered Race America. These people have been doing it for 30, 40 years. And sometimes they have really weird ideas on physics and stuff like that. But what they do works because they've just been doing trial and error for 40 years. And that's a pretty long time. And so then you move on to manufacturing. Stay on schedule is a very easy thing to say. In practice, it is a nightmare. For the leaders, I would say lie to your team about how urgent the situation is. Set a deadline for yourself that you have to get it done. Move it forward a week. Tell the team you have to get it done by then. I've found that this works relatively well, because then you get it done a week after you tell them to get it done. Build in a buffer, but don't tell them that you built in a buffer. And then, be nice to everyone. And I don't know if this really belongs in manufacturing. This is just a general thing. Your lab techs, they're highly trained. They can help you. We got our lab technician to cut out some stickers. He was a big help with the new CNC mill, training us on its use and stuff like that. And just also apply this to competition. I mean, once you become a successful team, at least for us, we feel that we have this obligation to help other people achieve our success, right below our success. But be nice to people, because you never know where help is going to come, and if you're helpful to people, they'll be helpful to you at some point in the future. And then finally, team dynamics is a very tricky thing to do because every team's going to be different, as Missouri said. And what works for one team is not going to work for another, so take this with a grain of salt. But I found that the two things that you really want to keep in mind is that everyone has ideas. So even though that you're a high and mighty senior or high and mighty grad student, you have this idea that you know will work. If a freshman says, "Hey, I have an idea," at least listen to it, because worst case scenario, it's like, no. And best case scenario, it's like, "Oh, I hadn't thought of that. Let's prototype it," and then it works wonderfully. A good example of that would be last year. One of our members developed a U-joint system for the drivetrain, which worked pretty well. And then another thing is keep everyone busy. If you keep everyone likes to be useful. And I would say that not feeling useful is the biggest reason that people leave a team. So if you keep everyone busy and give them meaningful tasks, so this means that the officers of the team, the guys that will stick around, they might be left with menial tasks, and for the sake of other people feeling useful. And so I just want to that this is kind of a design philosophy. It's kind of a bar stool approach between safety, simplicity, and success. Three tenets of design. And you want to get a good balance between those, because as you can see in the bad bar stool, they have concentrated too much on success, and so they have slid off into complications and danger. And you can take this analogy however you want, but just try and reach a balance between those. Because you have to concentrate on safety because you want to protect the rider, and insurance and other practical reasons like that. And you want simplicity so that you don't end up with a system that when it breaks, you can't fix it, or you can't assemble it. It's a terrible thing to have. And finally, success. If you're not going for success, why are you here? No reason. So I do want to, Rose is very good to us, and I just want to, I acknowledge that. Rose is very helpful in that there's this thing called the ATS Fund, which gives us a lot of money. They do the fundraising for us. And then we have the Student Innovation Center, which is this brand new building with the workspace and all that sort of stuff. And then our Student Government Association has been very generous with travel and stuff. Now, I've realized that not all schools have these programs. I know that they don't have these exact programs, mostly because one of them has Rose-Hulman in the name. And so, but the point here is that resources exist. They might not be as easy to find as they are at Rose, but the resources are out there if you search. So don't lose heart, and just look for those. Maybe someone has a brother's friend's cousin who has an aluminum store. Also, don't wing presentations. So anyway, so now I'm really gonna talk about. I was asked in the first demo was really talk about why we're successful, and I did my best to really try and distill this down to why we're successful, and I'm gonna start it out with a quote. Engineers often use data as a drunk uses a lamppost, for support rather than illumination. That's from my DFM professor. And so the point I'm trying to make is that you're going to have these things that you have worked on in your head for a long time, and you have determined that it is the best solution, it is the only way to do it. But then you start prototyping it, and it's like, so you mean two things can't be in the same place at the same time? Well, don't ignore that. If all the data is saying no, don't say yes. Data does not lie. Data does not lie. The testing methodology may be wrong. Question that. Look at that, because if you think it's right, it deserves to be looked at. But if everything that you're looking at is saying, don't do this. Don't do it. You know, this is hard because when you come up with ideas and stuff, you start forming an emotional bond with them. And I don't want to say stay distant from your project, because you want the passion. You want some sort of passion, but you need to maintain, you need to realize that what you think is right, what you feel is right, is not necessarily what is the right thing to do. Second, be critical of your own work and be critical of the work of others, but be respectful. For instance, don't be like, this thing sucks and you should feel bad. Say something to the effect of, I don't know if this will work. Something like that. Because you don't have to have a solution to point out that something's a problem. Bridge fails, I don't know why, but the bridge failed, that's bad. So don't be afraid to point out solutions, and make sure that your team is not afraid to point out solutions of the team, problems of the team. I think this is really a big reason that we're successful, because really, after we leave this, I guarantee you what's going to happen is on the car trip home, we're going to talk about all the stuff we did wrong. And then, by the end of the trip, after 8 hours of driving, we're going to have convinced ourselves that this is the absolute worst bike we have ever made, and we should never do anything like that again. This moment, I'm pretty happy with it, but after those 8 hours, it's a different story. But the point is that it's good to see flaws. You know, if you don't see the flaws, you won't know where to concentrate your effort. And finally, what you really want are, you want the passion, you want camaraderie, and you really want to improve. You want to have the desire to improve upon what other people have done and what your team has done. And I really think that that last point is really what is important, because if you have those things, you're going to put in the hours. You're going to come up with the ideas, and you're going to have an investment in the vehicle. And so you're going to really try your hardest to make it you know, what you want. And so as a side note, I'd like to mention that all of that was false. Our real key to success was our advisor, Dr. Moorhead. And so at this point, you know, I'd like to open it up for questions. You know, thank you for your time. I would like to, before I finish, we do have a design report library on our website. If you want to give us your design report, we'll post it on there. I was talking to a lot of new teams. They do use it. They find it very useful. And also, if you're a new team and you have, I was talking to a lot of them don't really know how to do layups and stuff. So we'll try and put some sort of step-by-step guide for the new teams to really show them how to do that. And if you have any other ideas for guides or something like that that you'd like us to do, you know, I think there's contact information. So just send us an email and we'll see what we can do. So are there any questions? Yes?
What do you do in a situation in which you delegate the different tasks that you do to different team members, and they just seem to not really do what they're supposed to do? And it's not, you don't want to tell them not to be part of the team, you want to put them down, but then they want to pull that form.
What's the question?
The question is, what if you give someone a project and they're not really following through with it? What you do is, what we've done, what I do is when I delegate, I give it to someone who I know will do a good job. You know, just being on a team, I know the people that I can rely on to get stuff done. And so what I do is that I take the reliable people, I give them the important tasks, and then you know, I take other people. Oh God, not all of you are reliable. I love all of you. And you know, I assign them to that project, and so hopefully then there's a bit more spreading out and ensurement that, you know, the project's going to get done. If that does come down to it, though, probably what I do is I would assign someone to help them.
One more question.
Sorry I went so long.
How big is your team?
Our team is about, I would say, 20 people. Actually, that's what we brought. We brought 19 people.
How do you select them?
whoever wants to do it. We have a club fair during the fall, and we set up and people come. We have a Learn to Ride Day. That is always a very popular way to get people to come. Learn to ride a recumbent bicycle. Certain mystique still about recumbents. So, yeah, that's how I would recommend. So thank you very much for your time.